How will Star Citizen ever include the vast amount of planned star systems? How will it include all these systems in a seamless environment? These are arguably the two biggest questions that have plagued Star Citizen for almost a decade now. And while the entire company, from Frankfurt to Los Angeles to Austin to Manchester, is working towards those goals, a newer studio, created in Montreal, has been an absolute shifting force in answering those two questions. Server meshing, the Hex editor, Mighty Bridge, hospitals, new spaceships, locations in every corner of the game, and more and more. I'm going to show you how Turbulent has made a monumental difference in the scale and possibilities of Star Citizen throughout the years, why it was eventually acquired entirely by the studio behind Star Citizen, and what it could mean for the future of the game. This is another supporter exclusive released early to those who helped to make this possible. If you'd like exclusive videos, behind the scenes updates, live podcasts, and your referral code in our referral code randomizer, consider joining as a member down below. For those who already have, thank you for supporting my Tomato Talks. There are a myriad of ways Turbulent has helped Star Citizen be realized. With a relationship dating back to 2013, Turbulent has been around for a while, but it's not unique for it. In my earlier video covering Baldur's Gate 3 and its parallels with Star Citizen, we touch on the extent of contracting in the business. Ilphonic, Behavior Interactive, and Firesprite, now owned by Sony, are just a few of the companies that have also worked on Star Citizen. In fact, the current resurgence of Arena Commander is due in large part to the current and former Firesprite employees who worked on the mode. So, Turbulent isn't unique in that regard. Where it is unique is in its ability to tackle challenging technical problems. Founded in 2002 by current CTO Benoit Beauséjour and CEO Marc Boudet, Turbulent has worked in film, games, and the web for decades on difficult-to-solve problems. Naturally, Star Citizen was a great place for the Montreal and Toronto-based company to end up. Now, 21 years later, after nearly 11 years of working together and a 25% share stake in 2020, Cloud Imperium Games has acquired Turbulent. Benoit and Marc have become Chief Technology Officer and Senior Vice President Studio Operations, respectively, and they're joined by a main team including Louis, Guillaume, and Pierre with over 80 years of experience between them, and another 200 plus employees who will continue with existing projects for now, in addition to the immediate impact that they've had on Star Citizen. Because of this acquisition, new talent pools have been tapped, specifically from Ubisoft Montreal regarding the leadership of the team. New teams have been formed to help usher in ships, locations, character art, and key technologies faster. And overall, I think a pretty talented company is now fully invested and believing in what Star Citizen aims to be, even if it might have taken a little while.
I remember meeting Chris the first time in 2012 and asking, well, are you going to keep crowdfunding? Like, of course we're going to, there's a vision to build. And so I didn't get that at the beginning, right? Now I do.
This was a smart acquisition, but don't take my word for it. Let's look at the work they've brought to the game so far and what's coming next. And for the record, there are hundreds of other employees at CIG that have done incredible work around the world over the last decade to get this game to where it is now. Their work is not to be discounted. But today we're diving into the roller coaster that is Star Citizen development to see how Turbulent was able to help calm the waters in recent years. If you've been a fan of Star Citizen for a while, you've probably heard something to the effect of, they are building the tools so that eventually the floodgates will open, the dam will break, everything happens. Right? Now, this is true to varying degrees. The game engine itself needs to be built out so that the game can be made efficiently. We can see how new locations and missions and ships are coming along faster because some of those tools have progressed. But somebody needs to be making those tools for other developers to use while we're all still playing the game. Turbulent contributes to that team. Dating back all the way to the original Spectrum forums, the group has been developing both web and game-based tools. Many of the sales and information pages, the ARC star map, the Galactopedia, the guide system, the issue council, they've all been delivered in some part by this team. The Hex player and reputation management tool is crucial to player progression, but never seen by the players. The Odin interface, which handles the quantum simulation, is also never seen by us, but needs to be functional and efficient to support the eventually millions of economic entities that make up the Star Citizen economy. So game designers and developers around the company need to have the software inside the company that allows them to do that. A lot of that comes from this team. Mighty Bridge is also a very significant part of the more tangible expansion of the game that we need to populate the various planets and space stations with interesting locations. It's also one of those tools that gets used all over the company. It's essentially a tool that allows third-party software to work inside of the Star Engine game editor. Houdini is a common application for this tool because it is so well known and ubiquitous across the industry. See, when considering software development, the game engine being used is as important as the metric versus imperial system in construction. If you're speaking the wrong language, everything's going to end up being a bit off. So rather than needing to recreate every single piece of software a dev may need, they've utilized existing familiarity through Houdini and the Mighty Bridge to quickly expand on caves, space stations, hospitals, derelict ship locations, and other locations around the game. Then there's the Cloud Test Launcher, a tool CIG has developed to allow the team to run scaled tests on the game client doing different activities. While this may not single-handedly solve the problems incurred from a lack of large-scale testing, like in the 318 PTU, it has already helped with tuning and testing of other components. What it does is it creates multiple virtual machines, runs multiple clients on those machines, and simulates the traffic of a certain scenario with a server connection, network load, and everything you'd expect from normal connected players. This can include anything from simulating a full capital ship battle to a bunch of players spawning tons of ships at once and flying off into the distance. As you can imagine, something like this is crucial for an MMO to test at smaller scales rapidly, and will be especially important for the rollout of server meshing. Speaking of server meshing, of all the back-end tech Turbulent has contributed to, this would be the biggest. Benoit was often the face of the effort behind persistent entity streaming, which created the constantly persistent environment we are in now, and the team has been crucial in the lead up to server meshing as well. And while we could spend several minutes touching on that subject, I'll point you to my last update on the topic and an upcoming server meshing video, which should be out by the time this video is public. Otherwise, let's take a look at the actual locations and features Turbulent has been and will be delivering to Star Citizen. The most significant recent development at the company as of November 2023 is the creation of the new ship team in Montreal. If you've followed the development of the features we are about to cover and know how quickly the team can work, this is cause for celebration. We're already well aware of the first test, the RSI Zeus Mark II, planned to go from white box to in-game in the space of 12 months starting November. This would be following the same timeline of a smaller scale ship, the Spirit. Along with the delivery of the cutter Scout, also from Montreal, this will give us an idea of how much this team might help to whittle down the ship backlog. But in this discussion at least, ships are actually a bit boring. Remember that first question that opened up the video? While most of the company is continuing gameplay features and engine development, somebody needs to build out our locations.
Basically, our goal eventually is to go at a level where our team can produce entire star systems, and by that we mean not only locations or not only design, like to have an integrated team that can work alongside the other teams at CIG and collaborate, but eventually be able to say, okay, let's do this star system and really develop it as much as possible, including gameplay, including a lot of things.
This team isn't just about placing derelict ships on moons and digging out caves with loot in them. The team is creating a tools department, characters team, gameplay development branch, branding team, design, and locations team. This is an entire new branch of CIG, focused almost exclusively on building out detailed, quality, heavily branded, and painfully recognizable star systems for the persistent universe to expand into with all the tools being built elsewhere. And with all these teams existent inside of Turbulent, there are also counterparts across the company that will be able to collaborate and update the game more efficiently with them as we see new locations developed, possibly carrying some of that efficiency through the rest of the company that has seemingly led to so much attention being placed on this studio in the first place. Even before the full acquisition of the company, this has already been very apparent in the Stanton system. Their first major drop of content was across 3.15 and 3.16, with most of it being in the massive 3.15 patch. Faster than I thought they would after hearing the news of their joining the team in 2020, the team cranked out the first additions to derelict points of interest in years, as well as new hospitals in Orison, New Babbage, Grimhex, and Area 18. Then in the very next patch cycle, we saw the addition of Lorville's Hospital, Space Station Clinics, and most surprisingly, derelict colonial outposts, which had only been revealed in concept 3 months earlier. This was a huge change in pace in Star Citizen development. Almost never were concepts revealed and released in the same year, let alone 2 quarters. And these included missions and NPCs that, well, tried to function but mostly didn't. Results varied, but the signs were clear. Things were changing. In 3.18, another crash site was added to the game along with the massive persistent entity streaming development, and with 3.19, the entirety of Lorville saw an update to look more like an actual city. This also gives us a sign of future updates to Levski and Nyx. In the 3.22 patch at the end of 2023, the number of derelict settlements expanded by at least 14. Much larger locations, similar in size to the new towns we see in development for Pyro. While these may still feature similar missions to what was run before, new locations, factions, and loot opportunities will provide more diverse gameplay. Speaking of gameplay, now that Turbulent is an internal part of Cloud Imperium, their gameplay team is folded into the work that the American teams are doing, leading to a restructuring of the PU development teams and the creation of the North American PU team, consisting of Austin, Los Angeles, and Montreal developers. These persistent universe teams are developing features like cargo, salvage, and mining related things. The first goals of this new NAPU team has been to build out the persistent hangars and freight elevator features, but will likely continue to include future cargo gameplay and missions, as well as exploration developments. This team has also been helping to establish more of the visual identity and design of each star system, and this really can't be understated. We've recently been made privy to more of the branding development going on behind the scenes, showing how the game is tightening the levers on each brand and making sure they fit the style guide and philosophy of whatever in-game entity they represent. Some of this work finds itself in new ships, some in the new player experience, and some still in the general systems being created. Remember 2 years ago at CitizenCon 2021, the new style of colonialism and the design of Pyro was essentially laid out for the first time, and a lot of that influence was coming from Montreal. The Pyro system derived a lot of its identity and vibe from that panel, and the same will likely be done for every system in the future. Nyx afterwards, and any other combination of Odin, Vega, Magnus, Castra, and Terra will combine new assets with old to scale the game up. Maybe not to 100 systems, but enough consistently with enough detail to engross players for years. Other future endeavors, which may not be so future by the time you see this, include building interiors, a procedural method of populating cities, space stations, and towns with commercial, industrial, and residential areas such as hubs for players, and mission locations in cities or underground. There are also underground facilities which seem to double as the recently revealed distribution centers, meant to house raid opportunities, advanced loot, team-based missions, and collaborative puzzles. These locations are being worked on by several teams throughout the company, and look likely for next year. Then there is planet development. We recently learned that machine learning will be utilized to help build believable planets that don't just match the proper temperature and humidity that they do now, but also feature unique geographic and geologic locations and weather. This will likely be part of the effort in building out these star systems more quickly, as the Montreal team was created to do. This has been just one deep dive into one of several studios working on Star Citizen. Each is filled with developers from various well-known studios around the world, many of whom do so for the passion of the project. Looking at the inception of the Montreal studios and teams, there's plenty of the same to see. And as the team in Montreal and many others across the world continue towards the goal of server meshing, many more have joined in anticipation of a fun, diverse space experience. There are many stories like this to follow across the various teams working on the game, and I'm only telling you the things I can find from YouTube and other public sources. As always, I'm here to cover this game development journey for you, and will continue with streamed videos and podcasts every week across my YouTube channels and on Twitch. My organization, GII, is always available to you to utilize as a place to get help, ask for advice, and chat for a bit. And if you want to jump into the game, you can use my referral link randomizer down below to get some extra credits or referral bonuses for you and one of my supporters. Besides that, supporters enjoy these exclusive videos before they are released publicly, and every secret code to my ship giveaways throughout the year. They also get to jump in on my live podcasts, which feature a lot of the other YouTubers you might recognize from Star Citizen every week. Consider joining on Patreon or YouTube down below if you'd like to help support us. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.